What up, you lab rats? This is episode number 82, and today we're talking about finding your voice and learning how to tell your story. It's Tip Tuesday. Stay tuned. Hey guys, welcome back to the lab, your daily inspiration for creating better content. Like I said, we're going to talk about how to tell your story, how to master your story. I've been interviewed 0.5 times, but I found that being able to tell your story is really, really important. That's what we're going to get into today. Being that it's Tip Tuesday, I'm going to give you some of my tips in how I started to formulate and master my story. And so everybody's got a story, right? You guys all have a story. And it's really important that you know how to tell it. And you have a couple of versions to tell when you start being, say interviewed or, trying to bring exposure to your brand, your message, your product, whatever you're trying to do, right? So it's really important to know and have a backstory just ready to go that sounds good, that has kind of like it has some flavor to it. And you only do that by practicing. You only do that by just kind of figuring out what your story is, okay? So first tip on mastering your story would be to find out what it is. And the reason why I say that is because in my experience, okay, I can only speak from my experience, which is I had a very, I would say not troubled past, but I would say colorful past. And I have a few versions of it available for certain audiences. So I have one that's really raw, that's probably offensive, that really shows the worst parts of myself. And I save that version for when it's appropriate. And so I also have other versions that are lighter, more happier, more... They focus on, more turning points where things were positive and things like that. So the point is that you find out these different versions of your story, which are all the same, deep down, but you have different versions that are, I hate to use the word marketable, but that's probably the best term. And so, depending on your situation, you're going to have to find which one is going to work for you. And, the foundation of that is just, understanding your story first, right? So all of us have gone through some sort of struggle and strife, the conflict, right? That's going to be the highlight of your story. And somewhere along the way, there was probably some turning point. There was enough is enough, and you didn't want to struggle anymore, and you wanted to change your life, or you started to change your life. And that right there is kind of the basis of any story. It was hard, but then I did something and I changed my life. So that is basically the template of any, story. It was hard. It was doing this to me. It was doing this to the people that I loved. And so I made these changes to make it happen. And so basically with that really simple, template, as far as to, what's my story? You're probably asking yourself that, what's my story? So take a look at that basic template. And then from there, you can kind of branch out and just, you got to practice with it. I find that practicing in the car by myself, driving to somewhere, commuting somewhere, when I go back home, I will often rehearse. I didn't know really I was doing this, but I would often rehearse my story so that I could master it. That way, when I was getting interviewed, depending on the interviewer, I had different versions for them. If they were willing to go there with me and go deep, then I would go deep. And then if not, if it was super light, then I had that in my back pocket too. That way, I'm just more equipped, to tell my story and be palatable to that audience. So I think that's super important, and it starts from there. You figure out who you are first, and if you're still going through that struggle, then great. It sucks probably if you're still going through the conflict and everything, but just know that your tolerance for that struggle or that conflict that you're going through, at some point you're going to break and decide to change your life. Hopefully you're going to decide to change your life, and you're going to take action and change it. And then there you go. Now you've got a story that can move people. And that's very powerful. So I encourage you to go and find it. Okay, so next thing, when you're trying to figure out your story, okay, you're going to discover a lot about yourself. And I went through a number of years, probably 2 to 3, just making peace with my own story. So you go through a lot of struggle and a lot of self-awareness, and you go, crap, that makes me look really shitty. And that's okay. That's okay. You should know that that's okay. But the point is, I can tell you that's okay all day long, but it has to be okay with you. You have to come to this realization that, okay, that was really bad of me, or that was whatever of me, and be okay with it. Like, it's one thing to see your faults, but it's another to berate yourself and to stay stuck there. So what I suggest or recommend is to see yourself for who you really are, accept that, forgive that, right? Like, okay, I messed up. Like me, I'd be like, okay, I got into a relationship that ended in cheating and bankruptcy. And I was mad at that for a long time and mad at that person. But then until I started to really accept that and be like, well, I was kind of part of that too, and what am I going to do about it now? I accepted it, and I just had to move on. You can't just stay stuck with those things. So all the conflict that you're going through, which is going to be kind of the base, the churning of your story, you have to come to terms with it. Otherwise, it will just always kind of be there, like it was for me. I remember when I first started writing, that's all I would write about was the conflict, and not really doing anything about it to change my life or to change my attitude about it. So it's one thing to have a story that has a lot of conflict, but it's the next step is to move on with your life and learn what you can learn from that, and then change it and incorporate that into your story. So, as you guys start to, say get interviewed, or, start to market your about me, your personal brand, it's going to evolve and change, but as long as you're cognizant of the power of a personal story that way, I think you'll be a lot closer to mastering what it is that people can attach themselves to as somebody who has a personal brand. The power of a personal brand is because they have this attachment to that person or that person's life story. Right away, when I think of Gary Vee, I think raised in Russia, in communist Russia, he was dirt cheap poor, and he hustled like crazy because he was dirt cheap poor, and yada, 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 whatever his struggles were. So that's something that I want you guys to take away from this episode, is that, telling your story is not just a means of crying out loud. It's a means of creating the space for someone, a potential true fan, to really latch onto you and what you stand for and where you come from, right? So that kind of relates back to, the book that we're reading together on Cozy Sunday, Primal Branding. You should check that out. It's in the description if you haven't watched those episodes already. They're on Sunday, so I don't know if you're chilling on Sunday. But that's it, guys. That will be Tuesday tips. We keep it tight, under 15. So thanks for hanging out with me. I really appreciate it. And we'll see you next time. Tomorrow, we have a really fun episode. Kevin and I talking about Podcast San Diego, and we dish everything basically, and we see Kevin coming into his own on the podcast mic, so that's really exciting. And so we'll see you. Veda is starting very soon. The lab rats here in this community are starting something called B2C Veda, which means beginner to creator. And so it's a chance for you guys to join me vlogging every day in April. Basically, you make a video and you post it every single day with the pre-designed questions, pre-designed topics that I've listed in this calendar, which you can link up to your calendar so you don't forget. And you can find that as well in the description. And then if you think that our community is too small, then you can also join SSS Veda, which is run by or hosted by Amy Schmidauer, which was the inspiration of this, of course. Okay, all links in the description. Appreciate it, guys. I'm lucky to have you, and we'll see you next time here on the Lab Rat Dailies. Peace out.